All right, everybody, what's going on? JP Football Fanatics fans, it's your boy James here, back with you once again with another recap video here for week number 9. If that all sounds good, please be sure to drop a like on this video. If you have not done so already, be sure to also hit the comment button down below if you wish to leave a comment on anything that you may agree or disagree with or anything like that, or leave some feedback as far as my videos go. And be sure to also hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to help this channel grow to be bigger and better than what it is already. So, without further ado, we'll begin. Thank you so much for everybody that always tunes into all my videos. Always means a lot as far as people that tune into the videos and my podcast, and it just goes to show me and many others as well that you guys appreciate everything that I do, and you guys appreciate the content that I provide, as well as me trying to also relay all the message and everything that I have to discuss with you as far as football goes and things like that. It really just means a lot. So thank you so much for being able to tune in. This week, week 9, was a very interesting, stellar week for some teams. There were actually some games that I would say were a bit of question in terms of maybe they could be possibly games of the year, per se, especially one that's maybe not like a high-profile game, like a Chiefs or a Bengals or a Buffalo Bills game, things like that. But hey, it was a great game to watch. I was able to watch quite a bit of it actually on NFL Red Zone, which is normally how I get to watch a lot of these games when I have the time to. And it was great to see them actually be able to show this game and showcase it, or talk about it at least as being one of the games of the year because of the rookie C.J. Stroud. So, and I'm sure all of you know about it already. So, without further ado, we're going to get ourselves started with the Week 9 recap. So let us go ahead and let's begin and go on to talk about business. Let's begin. All right. The first games we talk about here, we're going to talk about Thursday Night Football, which happened last Thursday, obviously, which was 5 days ago already. Crazy to think about it. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans. So, let's talk about the Titans first in terms of that game goes. So, Will Levis played his second straight NFL game this season, and it looks like, based off of what Coach Mike Vrabel said earlier today, is that Will Levis is going to be the starter moving forward, and then when Ryan Tannehill is healthy, he is going to be the backup. So it looks like for the remainder of the season at least, it looks like that the Ryan Tannehill era in Tennessee seems to be just about over. So what do I think about that? Obviously, I think it was time to move on from Ryan Tannehill. I think it's time to showcase something else and put some more new blood in there for people that, know about the Titans and knowing that it's time for a change. And Ryan Tannehill did a lot of amazing things since he's played with the Titans and traded for Miami. He's done a lot of amazing things, helped the team get to the playoffs 3 times, and, a great guy overall. Doesn't look like he's going to be a starter for the rest of the season, obviously. May not even ever be a starter again anywhere else unless there's a team that's looking for a veteran quarterback and leadership that Ryan Tannehill can provide to that team. But it looks like he is done for the rest of this year at least. He's going to be sitting on the bench watching Will Levis succeed, which I believe that is the right choice. I believe that Levis is actually going to put a spark into this team and maybe win a couple of more games than what we would have seen from Tannehill. Now, Tannehill's statuses before he went out, with his ankle injury and things like that. So he only threw for 2 passing touchdowns, and he had 6 interceptions. And his QBR is 71.9. So definitely not a great season from him. Definitely not the season that we saw from him the last 4 years since he's been with Tennessee, at least. Has had a lot of different injuries. He was injured a lot last year, so we saw a lot of Malik Willis and Josh Dobbs played also for this team last year. So this year was definitely the worst year that he's had in Tennessee. And, obviously Will Levis is the one that's really been taking that spark of Tennessee's offense. Obviously, the offensive line is still in shambles, but the wide receiver core is still the same. And Derrick Henry is still there, but they're missing a couple pieces on defense. They're missing Kevin Byard, who is now with the Eagles. So the team looks like they're ready to rebuild, refresh themselves, and get themselves ready for next year. Now, do I think the Titans are going to lose a lot more games? Yes, I do. Do I think they're not going to win any more games the rest of the season? No, I think they can probably win a couple of more games at least. I know they went in there and beat Atlanta. They have a couple teams that I feel like that they can still find ways to beat. Like I think they could beat Carolina. I think they could beat Tampa Bay. I think they could beat Indy. They might be able to beat Houston at least once. Um, don't know if they could beat Jacksonville. Don't think they're going to beat Seattle. I definitely don't think they're going to beat Miami. So they can get themselves to a couple of more wins. So they'll probably end the season with a five to 6 to 7 win radius. And I wouldn't be shocked if they made it to 8 wins, honestly, because Mike Vrabel is great of a coach as he is. He's always done a nice job with getting his teams better prepared and ready to win like big time games, even when he is like a big heavy underdog in a lot of those matchups. So this was one of those matchups where the Steelers, obviously, we know what they're like. We know what their season's like. You know the kind of team that they are and everything. So I can't really say Pittsburgh is better. I can't say they were much better than Tennessee. I feel like they're about the same as Tennessee. They might be just a tiny bit stronger because Mike Tomlin has had a lot more success in terms of winning games. He always has winning seasons. And I think overall he knows how to win like these type of games where he can win by just holding on for dear life. And I can't say this game was any better for Kenny Pickett. I don't think Kenny Pickett played that great of a game in this game. But they definitely made a couple more plays on offense that just was able to solidify the deal that they won the game. And their defense also kept them in the game as well, which is why Pittsburgh is 5-3, is because their defense is closed out on a lot of games, not their offense. So I still don't think Pittsburgh is a great team. I think they're a average team, maybe a little bit below average, but they're competing in a tough AFC North division. They've won a couple of those tough games, like they've already beaten Cleveland, they've beaten Baltimore already. So they have some teams that they've already beaten that they probably shouldn't have really beaten, to be honest with you. But they have those bragging rights where they've won at least one of those divisional games, and we'll see if they can play up to par against Cincinnati, later on in the season. So, the team is still not great. I don't think so personally, and I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I feel like they're maybe a couple of years away, maybe 1 or 2 years away from fixing up on that offensive line, maybe adding another vertical threat for this wide receiver core. I think George Pickens is good, really good. I think he's good for the deep ball. I think Deontay Johnson is good for the speed. But I think they just need a lot more help. I think they need more help on the offensive line. I think they need help in the running back room with Harris and Warren getting to that point where they're getting to the peak of the season, and maybe they'll be right just about there. Maybe they could do just enough to sustain a run game. But I still don't think they're still not that great of a team. I'm just being completely honest. I really don't think they're that great of a team for a 5-3 team, for a team that has won a lot of these games based off of luck because of their defense has been closing out on a lot of these games. So that's basically what happened in this game. And I felt Will Levis played a better game than Kenny Pickett, although Kenny Pickett just made lesser mistakes than Levis did, and they still found a way to win the game. So overall, game wasn't great. Neither team is great, but a win's a win for Pittsburgh. It's bragging rights, so that's something that they can be proud of. They'll be able to talk about for the rest of the season, rest of the time at least. They go against Green Bay next week at home, and they might be 6-3 by the end of week 10. They really could be, because Green Bay is not very good right now, and I think they can take advantage of that. Whereas Tennessee will have to play. I believe they have to play Tampa. They play Tampa Bay next week, which is maybe a winnable game for them, but I don't know. I wouldn't count them completely out. I think Will Levis can have a good game against them, especially the way that C.J. Stroud diced them up. So we'll see what happens. But, that's the talk about the Thursday Night Football game. Not a great game. Neither team was really good in this game, but I felt Will Levis was better. But at the end of the day, the better defense won, and that's how it happened. All right, next we got the Chiefs and the Dolphins. This game was played in Germany, as everybody knows. The Chiefs, what can I tell you? They do it again. They always find these ways. They're like the Steelers. They may not play great at times. They may just hang on by the skin of their teeth. but they magically found a way to beat Miami by the score that they did, 21-14. Defensively, I thought Kansas City's defense played incredible in this game. I thought they did a really nice job with getting all those coverages to Tyreek, slowing down the run. They didn't really get much of a ground game going. They did a really good job. I thought they put a lot of pressure on Mahomes. They were forcing mistakes. They were forcing a lot of different things that were going on, but they still gave up 21 points. And I felt like if Miami's offense with Tyreek, if he didn't fumble that ball, this game would have gone into overtime. And I feel like Kansas City should have really won this game by like a field goal instead of a touchdown. Like, I feel like Kansas City started out really hot in the first half. They scored 14. They scored 14 offensive points. Then they were able to get a defensive touchdown right before the half to make it 21-0. And Miami's offense just had nothing to answer any of those Patrick Mahomes, touchdown passes or anything like that, or even stopping that defense right there from scoring that defensive touchdown. So Miami, it's gone to show, and it's something that I've been saying pretty much since the offseason, that Miami is overrated. I still am going to stand by them being overrated for one big reason. It's because they don't play enough good teams. So, for example, they're very similar to the Bills. When they go to play really good teams, this is where they struggle and they don't win a lot of games. And they lose by like one possession or maybe more at times. So we'll put it that way. But with Miami's case, they played maybe one good team at the beginning of the year. If you want to name the Chargers as a good starter game of how they won, maybe that is a good team really offensively that they played this year. Yeah, okay, so they beat one good team out of how many other teams did they play that they beat? Carolina, not a very good team. They played, who else did they play? I'm trying to remember who else they played, guys. But yeah, I know Carolina was one of them. They played that. The Broncos, they put up 70 points on the Broncos. They beat the Patriots twice. They beat the lowly Giants. So they've beaten teams that just they're 1-3 at least against good teams. So they lost to Buffalo, got slaughtered by them, got beat by the Eagles. That game really, they weren't in that game at all. And they lost to the Chiefs. So right there, 3 Super Bowl contenders right there that they lost to already, and they can't compete. Next week they go to play the Raiders, and they're at home. And they have to find a way to be able to beat the Raiders, which I think they will and should beat the Raiders. But if the Raiders play the way that they played last week on defense and absolutely slaughtered against the Giants' offensive line and everything like that, and slowing down Saquon Barkley, they could have a difficult time too winning that game. I mean, as far as their defense and how they've been playing this year, I feel like Vegas' defense, which we'll talk about them later, has been playing pretty good this year. Definitely a lot better than what they were last year, that's for sure. And now with Aiden O'Connell at the helm, taking over for Jimmy G, I think their offense is going to get better. I think it's going to be even better than what it was with Jimmy G. Jimmy G wasn't the guy that was carrying a team to a playoff run or anything good for this team. So, I wouldn't be shocked if Miami decided that they were going to, crunch up and lose against the Raiders. So they're off next week for Week 10 bye, but then they go back Sunday the 19th, and they got to play against the Raiders. That won't be an easy game. It really will not be an easy game for them, considering how tough Vegas' defense has been this year. So that's going to put Miami to the test in terms of how they're going to respond to when they go to play good teams moving forward. So don't forget, they still got to play the Bills, they got to play the Cowboys, they still got to play the Ravens, and they got to play the Jets twice still. So, there's still some time of where they need to figure out what they're going to be, what their identity truly is. But don't be surprised if they blow it. Don't be surprised if they blow some of those games towards the end of the season. Now let's talk about Kansas City, though. I can't say Kansas City has been good this season. I can't say that they've been stellar, especially offensively. I think their offense has not been exactly the prettiest, but they do just enough to get the win. Each week, it seems like. Maybe one team they blew out this year was the Bears. That's not a big shocker right there. beat the Chargers by 2 touchdowns. They lost to the Broncos, only scored 9 points against them the second time they played. Scored 19 points on them the first time. That's not very good right there. So I think their offense is really just kind of showing their flaws of where they are. They don't have a number one legitimate wideout unless you consider Kelsey as one, which is fine that he is, and I agree he is the best tight end in the NFL, but he's not a wide receiver that you should be going to all the time. I feel like that that kind of defeats the purpose of having a tight end on the line to begin with too. You know what I mean? So you need to have legitimate wide receiver talent in the room to help out with what you're trying to accomplish in your offense and being more creative. And a lot of these players that the Chiefs have and Mahomes has to throw to are guys that are like names that you don't really hear about very often, or they're washed up, or they're rookies. And one of those guys that's psychotic a little bit nutty in the head is Kadarius Toney, a former Giant, and that's why the Giants couldn't handle him anymore because of everything that he was wanting and everything that he was complaining about. And he's still doing that in Kansas City too. He's not getting the ball nearly as enough as what he would like to, and he could be like that number, a solid borderline between 1 and 2. But if he's not mentally stable at times, how can you trust someone like that to be able to compose to an offensive play and reliable to throwing the deep ball down the field, or not even that really either, or be utilized as like a Deebo Samuel, rushing wide receiver of that. So, the Chiefs really, if you look at it, outside of Mahomes and Kelsey, and you have Andy Reid as your head coach, just think about it. Like, if you don't have any of those things, you're just an average to below average team. So if you take Mahomes out, you take Kelsey out, and then you take Andy Reid out as your head coach, you could very well be a below average team. That's not really even exaggerating either. Yeah, you have the offensive line. Yeah, you have the running back that is good enough. That's going to get you some yardage. But, you're fortunate to have Mahomes here. You're fortunate to have Kelsey. And you're fortunate to have a head coach like Andy Reid, because I feel like that if you didn't have any of those things, you could be in that same situation where the Bills are if they didn't have Josh Allen as their quarterback. Let's just face it. Let's be real with that. So I can't say the Chiefs are Super Bowl favorites. They're definitely contenders. Anytime that you have Mahomes, anytime you have Kelsey, anytime you have Reid, you're always going to be up there with every other team at least to be a contender. But, that's just something to really think about. It's just like how they've really played this year offensively, and really how the team has been pretty much, I would say, at times has been carried more by what their defense has been able to do. Like, I think Kansas City's defense has been the best that it's been in a long time. I think it's definitely the best that we've seen since Patrick Mahomes came into town and took over for Alex Smith. So, overall, the Chiefs are there are a lot of question marks too about what they really can do and who's going to be able to beat them and things like that. So, Miami couldn't get enough pressure on them. So, like, when they go to play these other teams later on in the season, they're going to have to watch film very carefully, and they're just going to have to get themselves figure it out as far as like where they're going to get themselves going and how they're going to do those kind of things. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's still, you still have a whole other half of football. There's a lot of games left to play. And, I definitely am not going to count the Chiefs out. I'm not going to count Miami out. I think Miami right now is the best team of the AFC East right now, at least, unless Buffalo can get themselves back up there. But I'm just saying, if Miami gets there, they're not going to really go anywhere very far if they have to play a good team like Cincinnati or Buffalo again, or Baltimore, or even a Kansas City if they have to play them early in the playoffs. So, these are just kind of things that I just really want some teams to really think about in terms of that. So that's the Chiefs and the Dolphins game there from Germany. Now let's talk about the Vikings. And this was definitely one of the storybook games of the week for sure. Josh Dobbs, was acquired from Arizona in a trade on, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday, arrived to Minnesota. Then he got he didn't quite start this game at first against the Atlanta Falcons. He was sitting on the bench for a little bit, letting rookie Jaron Hall see what he could do. Once Hall got himself injured on that goal line stop there from Atlanta's defensive line, that was their choice to force Dobbs out there earlier and play in this game. And for Josh Dobbs and what he's been able to do with Arizona, now what he's been able to do with Minnesota, taking over for Kirk Cousins, I think Josh Dobbs really is a guy that we really need to start really questioning. Is he a guy that's going to get you to the playoffs? Yeah, they played the Atlanta Falcons, and yes, he won on a last-second drive there. And is he good enough to get the Vikings to the playoffs? Well, in my honest opinion, if you look at his stats of what he was in Arizona up until last week when they played Baltimore, he's played some pretty good football, and unfortunately, he didn't win many of those games besides one game against the Cowboys. But I think he can do it. I think once you get Justin Jefferson back, and hopefully KJ Osborne is okay, and maybe now that you have Cam Akers, he towards Achilles, and he's going to be out the rest of the season. That's leaving Alexander Mattison to full-on potential here to carry the bulk of the ground game at least, and a pretty solid offensive line. You still have some, you're dealing with a lot of injuries, you're dealing with a lot of adversity, but don't be surprised if Dobbs actually wins a couple of more games and maybe could even compete for a playoff spot here with Minnesota, and maybe clinch that last seed in the NFC. I wouldn't be shocked if that really did happen. I thought Josh Dobbs' game here against Minnesota, if he would have started earlier, I felt like they could have won a lot more than what they did. But he played a pretty good game of football. I'm not going to lie. He really went in there, he took over, and he was just running all over the defense, and the defense had no idea where he was at all times, and they were very, Atlanta's defense was very much in not so much in sync of what he was going to do. Which I don't think Atlanta really fully prepared that Dobbs can move outside of the pocket, and he's going to scramble around. He's not a Kirk Cousins where he's mainly just strictly a pocket passer and maybe scramble around a couple of times, every other game. Dobbs is going to move a lot more than what Kirk Cousins was doing. And yeah, he's not anywhere near as good as Cousins is, but he's going to win with his feet. He's going to score in his feet, and he's very physical. He's tough. His mentality of football is to not give up. And, when he played for Tennessee last year, he took over for Malik Willis. When he got injured, he stepped into that role and, played primarily well. If you were really talking about, quarterback plays and everything, I thought he's been playing pretty good this year for Arizona. I thought he stepped up big for Minnesota in the biggest stages, and yeah, I really wouldn't be shocked if they won a couple more games this season and even push a playoff run and maybe even make it in as an 8-9 team. I just wouldn't really be shocked about it, and I wouldn't really even put it past them either. Now, as far as the Falcons go, are they still a playoff team? Are they still consistent? Are they still yes and no? I think they're a team that's going to do just enough to win very narrow games, but they're not really so much a playoff team as much as they are as a division winner. Now, I don't think they're going to win the division right now, but I think with Taylor Heineke at quarterback, I thought he played better than what we saw from Desmond Ridder by a long shot. But at the same time, too, their offense really just needs time to click and figure out some things, and they're not too far away from maybe even winning a division title, or maybe even clinching a playoff spot here. But, with Taylor Heineke and what he did last week was much better than what we've seen with Desmond Ridder. I wouldn't be completely shocked if Taylor Heineke, if he did take the team back into, relevance and maybe even push for a playoff spot here at the end of the year. I just wouldn't be too shocked about that, or maybe even win the division. I don't think anybody in their division is real threatening right now. Carolina's not at all. They're they're at the bottom of the league. You have Tampa Bay. That's not that great, but they can win at times. They can make some explosive plays. And the Saints, they won against Chicago, but they're also not very great either. So I think they have a legitimate shot here, and I think as long as Arthur Smith utilizes Bijan Robinson, the rookie, well, and he uses Taylor Heineke and structuring an offense that's going to work best for him, they can make it work, and they can be a decent enough team. But it just all goes based off of what coaching is going to do and how they're going to be able to push forward moving forward. So that's really what I just wanted to talk about in this game, really. I know Taylor Heineke made a couple of mistakes here, and that's probably was really the reason why they lost this game. But, can't blame it all on the quarterback, though. That's, at the end of the day, the better team won, and it just showed. So that's that game. All right, now speaking of the Saints, I want to talk about the Saints. Okay? They scored 24 points against the Chicago Bears, and come to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of other teams, I feel like this is the lowest that any team has scored on them this year besides Minnesota. I think Minnesota scored 19 points on them, and only 19 points. But other teams that they played against this year, take a look. Green Bay put up 38 on them. Tampa Bay put up 27. Chiefs put up 41. Broncos put up 31. Commanders put up 20 against them, and that's when they lost that game. Minnesota put up 19, even lower. Raiders put up 12. Chargers put up 30. And the Saints put up 24. I felt like the Saints were trying to do everything in their power to ensure that they weren't going to win this game. I don't know what it was, but I felt like there were so many different mistakes that were happening from the Saints' offensive side of the ball that they were doing so much to throw this game away. And Chicago with Tyson Bagent, and nothing against the kid at all. He's been playing some decent enough football. He's been a fun story to watch. He's been a fun story to listen to. But he's not an NFL starting quarterback, and he threw 3 interceptions in this game, just like he did when he played up against the Chargers last week. So I felt like the Saints and Derek Carr, they did so much that they were just about to throw this game away. Now, I felt like Derek Carr played a better game than he has this year. This is probably one of his better games that he's played this year. But their defense is also a bit of a question. I feel like they gave up so much yardage in the passing game. I felt like their defense gave up so many yardage against the Chicago Bears offense that's just not very good at all. And the Saints have started out the season very strong, and they were playing good in the very beginning portion of the season, but now they're kind of drifting in that way where they have a lot of questions. And I would not be shocked if their defense at the end of the day becomes if they keep playing the way that they're playing and the trend that they're going to right now, wouldn't be too completely shocked if they were, a below average defense at that point. I think, age is definitely showing on defense now. They're not playing nearly as physical or as tough as they were in the beginning of the year. The offense is, clicking a little bit better now, but I still don't think they like Derek Carr. I still don't think he's, someone that's going to carry this team to a Super Bowl. I don't think he's a guy that's going to, carry this team to a divisional, title. And even if they do, they would end up being very, very lucky if that does happen. But the Saints, I have a lot of questions about them. And I was giving them the benefit of the doubt earlier in the season and thinking that, they could be good enough. Carr could probably put up some numbers. He will be better than what they had before. Better than Jameis Winston. Maybe better than Andy Dalton, but I think Dalton now is actually better than Carr right now at this point in his career right now. And that's saying a lot. And, when Andy Dalton played in this for this team last year, he put up some pretty good numbers, believe it or not. And when he played for Carolina in that one game against Seattle, I thought he looked even better than what Bryce Young has played this season. But obviously that's a different story that we'll talk about later. But yeah, the Saints, man, I just have a lot of questions. The ground game is getting better. Their offense is on and off. One day they'll play some good football, and other days they just won't click. They won't play good enough. So they got to go up against the Vikings. This coming Sunday they'll have to play against them, and that's going to be a difficult game for New Orleans, and it's going to be even difficult for Minnesota too. Both teams that are 5-4 not that long ago. Excuse me, I had to sneeze right there for a second. But, both teams that are just above 500, both teams that were poised to have better seasons this year, hasn't been exactly that. I think some people could argue and say that Minnesota was due for a regress, and yeah, probably. But I still feel like they were going to be hanging around there in the playoffs and be a lot more competitive than the Saints were at least. So, the Saints have to get these things figured out. Like if they want to compete for a division game and they want to win a lot of these different games, then they have to start putting themselves together and saying, hey, we got this team. We got a pretty decent amount of talent. Like, Alvin Kamara, has been playing better. And, Chris Olave, the second year wide receiver, is, the best wide receiver we have right now. Michael Thomas, I have no idea what's going on with him right now. It feels like that he is not even interested in playing football right now. Which is a huge problem for this offense because when he is in the game, he helps out Chris Olave a lot with separation. You have Taysom Hill, plays as that utility player that he is. He can play quarterback, he can play tight end, he can play receiver, he can play running back. Keeping Taysom Hill is definitely your best shot of doing anything and getting some speed on there. That's for darn sure. So you do have good enough talent. You just gotta figure out like ways of like how to manipulate, how to game plan for a lot of these teams, and what are you gonna do to get your offense going? And like, are you gonna be switching out like every other play? Are you gonna keep doing running the same offenses that you've been running for the last several years with Taysom Hill and Derek Carr going in there for the bulk of the offensive drives? Like, as long as they can stay consistent and as long as they can stay healthy, they'll still be they'll still be up there. They'll still compete and they'll still be they can still win a division title. And if they don't do that, then it's going to be a long rest of the season for them, and they might as well just forget about this year. They could move off from Derek Carr early. And as for the Bears, defensively they've been playing better. I feel like they've been playing some pretty good defense as of late. But I think they're still just not a good team overall. So not really much to say about them. We'll see what happens when Justin Fields comes back going into next week and see how much better it's going to be for them moving forward. All right, this game real quick. Don't want to go too much into it, but congratulations, Packers fans. You won this game. You won it 20-3. The score looks a lot more, pleasing than what the actual game was. If you actually sat down and watched the game, this was definitely the worst game of the week. Green Bay is still not very good by any stretch. They're still not passing the ball right. Jordan Love is still throwing the ball inaccurately. Christian Watson is still not existent. I don't know what's going on here. And the run game is also still very subpar. Their offensive line is also kind of questionable too. Their defense played better, but they only played better because no Matthew Stafford for the Rams. And now that you go up against Brett Rippon, how scary is that? Not really, very scary. So the Rams just picked up Carson Wentz today as their backup, and he's going to be fulfilling that spot until Stafford comes back. And I feel like Wentz will be pretty productive. Like, I know a lot of people want to sit there and say that Wentz is no good. He's washed. His physical tools are no longer there. He doesn't have that winning mentality. He doesn't care about football. Like, there's a lot of different things that you can say and make arguments on that. Carson Wentz may not be the quarterback or the MVP that we all thought he was way back when. But I think he is a much better choice at this point right now. If you're looking for Stafford to be out for quite some time, I think Carson Wentz can do enough to get the job done. And I will say, I think in Indy and I think in Washington, I don't think he got a fair enough chance to showcase of what he was able to do. Especially in Indy, I think the way that they traded up for him and they got him, and the way that he was playing, I thought he was good enough. He was fine there. I don't think there was really any problems with him personally with turning the ball over. I think Frank Reich did a really nice job in Indy to ensure that he wasn't going to turn the ball over and to ensure that he was, going to play conservative football and not allow him to do a whole lot or play reckless football. I think as long as he protects the football as long as he doesn't turn the ball over and he plays smart football. I think he can win quite a few more games for the Rams and help this team push for that playoff spot and, be more competitive at least in a lot of these games. I think he will be decent enough as a backup. I still think he is a quality backup that I think a lot of teams really need to think about of getting for their team if their quarterback ever gets hurt. Because I think at this point in his career, he may not be the starting quarterback anymore like he used to be, but he's still a very quality, good backup and pickup that you can get for cheap. And you know that he's won games, he's won a lot of big games, and has won a lot of games in his career. So you know what he's like. You know his physical tools are still there. You know he can scramble outside of the pocket. You know he has a really good arm too. And I think it's going to be better for Cooper Kupp in the long run. I think with the absence of Stafford, Carson Wentz will get out there and he will help the team, be productive on offense and not only score 3 points. I think he will be able to do that, and I think he can do just fine with that. I think honestly he could be even better than than some of the starting quarterbacks that we have right now. Jordan Love, for example, is one has not proven that he's NFL worthy, at least not as of late. Or other ones too, maybe a couple rookies, maybe like Bryce Young, who hasn't been playing exactly up to that number one liking at least. So you just never know where he's going to go, and you know that he probably could be better for the team than what people want to give him credit for, based off of his experiences in Indy and the experiment that he had in Washington last season before he was benched for Taylor Heineke. So we'll see. I think this was a good choice for the Rams. It was a good choice to get a good quality backup that knows how to win games and can definitely help the team out, win some games until Stafford gets back. And the Packers need to figure out what their identity is, because I just have no idea what that team is. So let's go to this next game. We'll go to New England and Washington. Obviously, New England lost this game yet again. They lost another close game. Washington, Sam Howell, besides that interception, played exceptionally well. I thought he played a pretty good game most of the time. He made some good throws. He made some very smart decisions with the football. I just more fear of him as being like my full-time starter is him holding onto the ball for a way too long of a time period. And that you just can't hold on to the ball for that long of a period when you're playing up against Bill Belichick's defense. You can't do that, because he's going to manipulate. He's going to figure out and game plan on how they're going to turn the ball over on you every single time out. They're going to go in for strip sacks. They're going to go in there to force turnovers. They're going to go in there to get pressure and blitz on you every single time if they know that you can hold the ball on for a long period of time and not throw the ball to an open receiver, find somebody that's open, or get rid of the ball before you even get sacked. So that's really my biggest fear that I have about Sam Howell being the quarterback, and that does concern me quite a bit as far as the team as a whole. So without Montez Sweat, without Chase Young, they defensively they played a bad offense of New England. I mean, so they were able to figure it out. They were able to play defense against Mac Jones and the Patriots. They were able to play defense on them. They were able to force the turnover at the end there, which was not Mac's fault, by the way. I felt like that ball was tipped and was thrown into the arms of that defender right there, and that primarily really wasn't Jones's fault. I think that ball was just more likely, it was more or less tipped and then picked off in that direction right there. So, but overall, the game itself don't have a lot to really explain about. But the Patriots season is done. The Commanders are still fighting, but I still think they're pretty much done at this point. This season too. I don't feel like they're gonna get back into the winning mentality. Maybe they'll win a couple more games, but I don't think they're a team that's going to be a threat down the road. I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to want to, go in there and win these games and, scare a lot of teams. I don't think they're going to be scaring a lot of teams, especially now that they lost. They don't have Sweat and they don't have Chase Young anymore. So the team itself overall now is just average all over the place, and they were able to do just enough against the Patriots, who are actually really worse than Washington is. All right, next game I want to talk about is the Ravens and the Seahawks. So, I want to talk about this game and just go ahead and tell you, you got to fear the Ravens right now. Okay, you got to fear the Ravens. They are legitimately, I believe, they are the most complete and they are the most hottest team right now in the AFC. That they're going to go in there and they're going to be a threat to the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, the Jaguars, like, all those top AFC teams that everybody considers the best of the best. Like the Ravens, man, where is the respect and the love that we should be giving to the Ravens? They've been playing phenomenal this season. Lamar Jackson is playing at an MVP level this season with his passing ability, his reduction of the ability of running the ball, and allowing running backs to rush in for touchdowns and let them get primarily into the scheme of the offense, and having legitimate wide receiver help with Zay Flowers, who's been a pretty nice addition to the team. Odell over first, and that stinks for him, but he came back in, he scored his first touchdown as a Raven, and that was a pretty nice, impressive story that he had. He had a good game in this game. Mark Andrews was heavily involved yet again. The offensive line is good. So, and the defense is scary good. And I know they probably play inconsistently. They probably don't play up to, the standards that we expect them to be, like the number one top defense in the league. But I will tell you that defense was all over Geno Smith and Seattle's offense the entire game. And they bull rushed Geno Smith in making crucial mistakes at crucial times and, forcing the ball over and having the ball get thrown into harm's way. And their defense has just been legitimate all season long so far. I think their worst game that they've had was against Arizona. But, against Seattle, they've been all over it. They were all over it in this game. And Baltimore had an amazing game plan where this was the same game plan of when they played against the Lions. And, then the Lions are a good team there too. So, yeah, Baltimore is a good team that I think they're going to go in there. I think they're going to compete, especially in their division. They're going to hopefully beat the Steelers again. I think they're going to beat the Steelers the second time. I think they have a legitimate shot of beating the Browns again. That would be a sweep. And really their biggest threat would be the Bengals, would be their biggest threat. And maybe that's the time where the Bengals now they're very hot right now, and they'll probably be in that game a lot better than what they were the last time, and maybe they'll win that game. But hey, the Ravens can still compete, and they've beaten some good teams this year. I think they're the only, besides Cincinnati, I think this team is the only team that has beaten good teams, and they've beaten teams convincingly. As long as they can win in the biggest stages of moments, they're going to be up there with a lot of teams. And I think they're gonna really force other teams to be reckoned with, and not want to play them again because of how good they've been. And then the Seahawks have been kind of up and down, so not really much to really add about that. All right, next we got the Texans and the Buccaneers game, and this was definitely the game of the week. I loved the way that C.J. Stroud has been playing this season. He has been, and if he's not in that conversation for at least Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, there's something wrong with you. This guy has been absolutely amazing this year. You don't go in there as a rookie to carry a team on your back with a lot of injuries on the offensive line, injuries in the run game, and go ahead and take over the show the way you did. 470 yards, 5 touchdown passes. You played a very clean football game in my book right there. If you can do that as a rookie, doing that for throwing almost 500 yards, 5 touchdowns to Tank Dell twice, Dalton Schultz once, and then you throw to Nico Collins. This team is definitely would not be the same exact team if C.J. Stroud wasn't here, or Tank Dell, who's been a monster of a rookie for this team this season. And this has been a crazy year for C.J. Stroud. He may honestly go down as the best rookie quarterback in NFL history. He may very well do that. And then Noah Brown also getting involved too. What a game he had as well, Noah Brown. That was amazing. So, yeah, CJ Stroud, man, cannon of an arm. The guy can run all over the place. He can definitely make a lot of defenders miss. Throws the ball up in the air and definitely can throw a lot of dots. He's extremely accurate, which is crazy to even think about as a rookie quarterback that can play at that level already. He really, I feel like Carolina right now needs to really think about, like, that, the way that he's playing, they might be thinking to themselves, maybe we should have taken Stroud over Young, because Young is still maturing. He's still kind of small and needs time to develop, and we didn't properly really do that. And if you think about it, the Panthers have just as much talent as the Texans do, and the Panthers beat the Texans. So CJ Stroud is just an absolute stud. He's a beast, man. 470 yards, 5 touchdown passes. I don't know how else I could really explain that. Like, this is amazing as a rookie quarterback. And if you guys didn't watch the highlights or anything from CJ Stroud this season, guys, you got to go ahead and check him out, because this guy has to be one of the greatest quarterbacks from a rookie quarterback in NFL history. This guy has done so much and has really made a lot of people turn on to the franchise of Houston, and honestly is better than what any other quarterback that they've had. I think he's even better than Deshaun Watson when he was here. But, enough about CJ Stroud. I don't want to give it too much of the credit for him, but Tampa Bay's offense also really stepped up in big moments too. Baker Mayfield also had the best game of his season, in my opinion, too. So I can't take that away from Mayfield and what he's been able to do with the Bucs this year. I think he's been playing some of his best football of his career this year with Tampa Bay, despite being under 500 as a quarterback and for a team. But he played in this amazing game too, and he played exceptionally well too. Maybe not exactly the way of how Stroud did and make those big time throws, and maybe not playing exactly the way that Stroud did, but give Baker Mayfield credit for what he did. Give him credit for how he played in this game. It was an incredible game for both teams. They both played absolutely lights out football. Every wide receiver, every offense, defense, like everybody played their hearts out. This was a wild game that I would consider as one of the candidates for Game of the Year this year. That's how good this game really was. All right, next we got the Browns and the Cardinals. Not much to really talk about this game. Clayton Tune took in the role of the starting quarterback since Josh Dobbs' departure from the team. Didn't exactly go the way that he wanted it to, obviously. But Cleveland's defense came in there, and they came back on track, and they won this game, basically. And Deshaun Watson had a pretty good game in this game, too. I thought he threw some really nice passes to getting Amari Cooper involved, getting Kareem Hunt some touches, and Jerome Ford, who's been, two running backs that have been stepping up this year to take over for Nick Chubb and his injury. So the Browns are still in it. I still think they're competitive. Their defense is still the best that we've seen it in a while. So there's not really a lot to really talk about this game. But I just kind of wanted to mention that and give credit to the Browns and how they played. All right, guys. Minshew Mania in Carolina. The Colts won this game 27-13. They won this game by 2 touchdowns, and overall the Colts, even without Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew is showing you that he can also play at a pretty high, competitive level too. The Panthers are pretty much done at this point. I wouldn't be shocked, by the end of next week if they play the Patriots, and they could be almost mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, which wouldn't be, or at least not the Patriots. They play against the Bears this week. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they get mathematically eliminated from the playoffs by the end of the month. I wouldn't be shocked about that at all. The Panthers have struggled this year. Bryce Young has struggled this year. Threw another 3 interceptions. He threw a touchdown pass to DJ Chark, one of his only lone receivers outside of Adam Thielen. So, yeah, the team has been struggling this year. They struggled against the Colts. Bryce Young threw his first pick 6 of his career to the Colts. The Colts stepped up in big moments, too. So, Gardner Minshew, he had 127 yards. He threw a touchdown pass to Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor looks like he's back on track with football. He looks like he's happy again. Does not look like he's going to get traded anytime soon. I think he's fine where he is right now, and I think he will, he'll continue to play for the franchise and continue to grow as a leader, a veteran leader of this franchise here. And I think he will. And I think once Anthony Richardson returns next season, I think the team will definitely be a lot more of a threat on the ground. So Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss have been stepping up in big moments, and Michael Pittman also had some big moments too in this game. It was a little bit concerning when he almost got taken out of the game took some pretty hard hits in this game. But the guy is as tough as nails, though, and he is your number one receiver, no matter what anybody says. Josh Downs, the rookie, was taken out early. That hurts a lot. Because he also has had a good couple of weeks. So, yeah, the Colts are getting better. I think they're hanging around a lot better than what we thought they were going to this season. And, they beat Carolina for a reason, and that's why they did that. So, credit to Indy for the way that they win. They go to Germany, and they play New England next week, and we'll see how they do. That'll be a tough game for them. Anytime that the Colts play against the Patriots, that's always a very tough game there, so to speak. And anything can happen, especially in a neutral site. So that's all I got to really say on that game. No pictures here. I apologize. I know it's been kind of a crazy week for me and everything like that, so I wasn't able to get too many pictures, so I do apologize for that. But just kind of, just want to see if there's no other pictures here. Okay. So that's fine. All right, so first we just want to talk about the rookie win for Aiden O'Connell. Great game for him. Man, the guy has a cannon of an arm. He is absolutely incredible as a rookie. He's going to get himself better moving forward. I think he's going to be the starter for the rest of the year, and I think he should be. I think he's thrown some really nice deep balls down the field. The team responds better for him. The team looks more alive, and better yet, Devontae Adams looks a little bit happier now with that. And he looks a little bit more happier with the coaching change of Anthony Pierce. Giants, the season's done. No other way to explain it. Danny Dimes, they said earlier this week that he's out for the rest of the season. I believe they said an MCL tear or ACL tear, either one of those two. So, yeah, he's going to be out for the rest of the season, which is going to force DeVito, the third stringer, to play maybe another game or so and until Tyrod is healthy. But honestly, this season's a lost cause for the Giants, which is a shame because I think a lot of people, including myself, were trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and maybe stepping up in big moments. But that just isn't going to happen for the season. All right, we got 3 more games left to talk about. Next, we got the Eagles and the Cowboys. Man, what a game this was. This was also another game that not quite game of the year material, not quite the same standards as what I was holding the Texans and the Bucs game. But this game was also very entertaining to watch, too. I felt like the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, for anybody that wants to sit here, and I'm not even a Cowboys fan. I will come out and say right now, I'm not a fan of the Cowboys, and I'm not an Eagles fan either. I'm a Giants fan. But if you guys think about it right now, when watching this game, whether if you're a Cowboys or an Eagles fan or not even a fan of either team, take a look at the stats for the Cowboys and take a look at the stats of the Eagles. Compare them, contrast them back and forth, and let me know what you see. Because a lot of people are going to blame a lot of different things of how this game went, especially on the Cowboys side, if you're a Cowboys fan. One, people are going to say that Dak Prescott lost the game for them. Some people are going to say Mike McCarthy, the coach, lost them this game. Some people are going to say the ground game is not good enough. Some people are going to blame the defense and not getting enough turnovers, which what they were used to earlier this season. So, a couple of things. One, Dak Prescott. If you think Dak Prescott played very poorly in this game, you got to get yourself examined immediately. Dak Prescott, in my opinion, had one of the best games of the season against the Eagles. Didn't turn the ball over. Maybe a couple of plays, and I will say that, maybe a couple of plays that were not very smart decisions, and that was more of like field awareness of not knowing when to throw the ball away, or at least when not to take a sack. So I'll say that there. Those are probably some things that were probably game changing. But You take a look at the stats. You take a look at the way that he played the game. Dak was absolutely phenomenal in this game. There's no other way of going around it, guys. Like, I understand. You guys don't like the Cowboys. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I don't like the Cowboys. I always pick on them all the time, too. But this was Dak's best game of the season, in my opinion. And, he's played a couple of really nice games this season. I think he's also had what some people could argue his best season in quite some time, especially post his injury, which was when he got hurt with his ankle. So I really think Dak played very well in this game, and he really should be very proud of the way that he played the game. However, the Eagles just made a couple of more plays that was game-changing, and the biggest moments were penalties. And like I said, penalties also saved, the Eagles a little bit, but also gave the Cowboys some late-life hope, especially like 3 or 4 penalties in a row, and the way that Dak was throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb. That was incredible right there. And that was that was a legitimate shot right there. That was a gift, really, for the Cowboys where they could have won. And if they would have made that 2-point conversion, if they wouldn't have gone for it on 4th and goal for that touchdown there before, they were just short and they were stopped at the goal line. If any of those things didn't happen, I feel like the Cowboys would have played come from behind and they would have won that game. Like, there were a couple different coaching errors that I felt were not necessary at the time. Yeah, I understand you're in 4th and goal. You're right there. You want to score a touchdown. So I understand the aggressiveness in that, but you also have to understand the team you're playing against. You're playing against the Eagles. You're going to have legitimate shots of getting yourself back into the game. Just kick the field goal, then go down there, march down the field, go ahead, get a touchdown, and then you're down by 2 at that point. Unless if you don't get that 2-point conversion right there, you still have enough time where you can get down the field. And with those penalties, you didn't even need to worry about a touchdown at that point. You could have just gotten a field goal, and you could have won that game pretty handedly right there at that point in the season. So the Eagles also played well too. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Eagles are frauds or anything like that. No, I'm not going to sit here and say anything as far as negativity around the Eagles. They also played a good game, but I felt the Cowboys were more productive in the game than the Eagles were. Just that the Eagles were just at the better end, and they made a couple of more plays than the Cowboys did. But both teams played pretty well. Dak, I thought, outplayed Jalen Hurts. I really do believe that. And Dak played one of the best games of the season. He's had a couple of games where he's been phenomenal this year. And you can't sit here and disrespect Dak the way that some people have this year. Like, you can't do that when he's coming off of one of his best games of the season. So, it is what it is at this point. They'll play again against each other again later on in the season. And we'll see who's more prepared this time around. Whether if it's going to be the Cowboys, if they're going to come up with a better game plan, or if it's going to be the Eagles again doing the same exact things of what they did in this game. So, a lot of lessons learned there. Okay, 2 more games. Sunday Night Football, the Bills and the Bengals. Okay, I picked the Bengals to win. I was right. Okay, not to toot my own horn, toot, but the Bengals are just clearly the better team than the Bills. The Bills are struggling right now to do anything, personally. I think defensively they're very thin, just like I said all season long, that their defense, if they don't stay healthy, they're going to go into shambles. They're going to be very thin, and they're going to be walking on thin ice all season long if they don't stay healthy on defense. That's exactly what's happening right now. They can't stop anybody. Okay? Cincinnati is one of the hottest teams right now in the NFL. They're going to start winning a lot of games now. Okay? Joe Burrow played a great game in this one. Wide receiver-wise, T. Higgins had one of his best games this season. Tyler Boyd was involved. Joe Mixon, for the last couple of weeks, has been playing pretty good football. I think he's been playing better than he was last year, so I think their ground game is better than last year. Offensive line is still a question, but I think they did a better job against Buffalo, just knowing about the injuries and the different starters on that line right there. So, the Bengals obviously are just the better team overall. Not really too much there to say about it. Joe Burrow is a phenomenal quarterback that's going to get the job done. He's going to go down there and get the ball going. But Josh Allen also played very well too. Josh Allen also threw an interception, and Dalton Kincaid also turned the ball over too in the most crucial time possible. And, Cincinnati's defense, I know a lot of people may say, and probably will rip them apart as not being anywhere near as good as what they were in years past. Yeah, that's probably true. They're probably not as good as they were last year, but they're still pretty good. Like, I think they got a lot of pressure on. I think that I think they got a lot of pressure on him. I think they did everything that they were supposed to do. I think they also pressured Allen in forcing turnovers. They were there. They were getting pressure on him. Oh, anyway, I think Cincinnati's defensive line and Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, they've been doing a lot of things in their pass rush that's been getting to a lot of teams as of late, and they were able to do that against the Bills, knowing that their offensive line isn't very good. The Bills still struggles, and they still struggle to get a ground game going. So I don't understand the idea of why they picked up Leonard Fournette. I think that was a waste of a pickup for them. They shouldn't have gotten him in the first place, but I think they should have picked more of an offensive line that's going to be a little bit more, but that could be a little bit tougher to get in the free agency. I don't know. But either way, it's a waste of a pickup right there because they're not going to utilize him well either. Just like what they're using with Cook, who is a better running back at this point in his career than Leonard Fournette. I'm just saying. So, we'll see what's going on. I think the Bengals are back into their contender mode. I think they're going to contend. I think they're going to be, right there with the Chiefs and the Ravens. And, I think they're going to be right there with teams, and they're going to, find ways to beat these teams later on in the season. The Bills still have a lot of work to do. They got to get themselves figured out what they're going to do before the season, before the season ends. Now, I'm not afraid that the Bills are going to miss the playoffs. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I think anytime that you have Josh Allen, like I was talking about the Chiefs before, as long as you have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, as long as those two are healthy, you're going to be guaranteed a playoff spot either way. But just don't expect to win the big game until proven otherwise. And, obviously he doesn't have Andy Reid as his head coach. He has Sean McDermott, who I think the Bills should consider moving on from next season because he just hasn't gotten the job done of getting the team to the Super Bowl where they rightfully deserve. I think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs have been, they've been preaching and praising for a Super Bowl run since basically day one. Not even from this season, for like the past 4 or 5 seasons that they've been together. You know what I mean? So, they just need to fix up things, and maybe that upgrade of that coach is going to need to do something. Maybe that will be that spark that this team needs that's going to run an offense, and I think their offensive coordinator also just needs to go too. Because I feel like they can be good. They just need the right coaching at the right time. They need to pick up talent at the right time, too. That's going to push them over the hump. Whereas the Bengals, they can get away with Zach Taylor, because I think Zach Taylor's done a pretty good job turning the team around, but a lot of it also comes down to Joe Burrow. All right, let's face it. Joe Burrow, in my opinion, is the number 2 quarterback in this league for a reason. He's number 2, in the top 2. He's right there next to Patrick Mahomes. I know everybody wants to say that Patrick Mahomes shouldn't be in the same tier, or Allen and Burrow shouldn't be in the same tier as Mahomes. Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. But you can't argue the fact of what Joe Burrow has done early in his career. He's taken the team to the Super Bowl, could have won it. He's done everything that he could with a terrible offensive line and has carried this team along with Jamar Chase and all that talent that they have, and has turned the team into something special. And before that, it wasn't even that. They weren't in anything special at all with Andy Dalton when he was there. And same with the Bills. The Bills were absolutely nothing until Josh Allen started kicking it on, and he got better. Without Josh Allen, the Bills wouldn't be in the situation that they're in right now in playoff hopes or Super Bowl contender. I'm just saying right there, right now, for everybody that watches football and understands the game of football. You got to give Allen and you got to give Burrow the credit that they rightfully deserve. They help their teams out a lot. They bail their teams out on a lot of big-time game decisions. They really do. And they deserve as much credit as anybody. They're not overrated. They're showing you that they can showcase the best that they can do. They just need that extra push, and they just need to showcase at the right time and in the right moment, which I think one of these two will eventually. I think Burrow and Allen will eventually win a Super Bowl. They eventually will. But it's just going to take time, and it's going to take a little bit of hope. But one of these two teams, well, maybe even both teams, will find a way eventually to win a Super Bowl. May not be Patrick Mahomes, may not be Andy Reid of this decade, but they may not be that dynasty, but they're going to win at least one at some point in their career. You got to give them credit where credit is due. So next is the Chargers and the Jets. Not a lot to really say about this game except that the Jets offense stinks. That's really all I got to say about that. And Zach Wilson, man, I don't know why the Jets didn't go for Carson Wentz, who's proven that he can win games. But Zach Wilson, man, he's really improved this year. I think he's much better than what he was last year. And I think a lot of that help comes from Aaron Rodgers being in the locker room. But, you also have to take a look at the talent, too. Their talent on offense really isn't all that spectacular outside of Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall will have a couple of explosive plays here and there, but he hasn't really showcased yet that he is the viable running back like a McCaffrey or explosive like that or a Saquon or anything like that. He hasn't showcased that yet. Their offensive line is absolutely dreadful. Guys, I can't even stand to watch a Jets game on offense. Anytime I watch them on offense, I just want to absolutely puke all over the floor and all over the TV because that's how bad their offense is. They can't get a ground game going. They can't get the pass going outside of Garrett Wilson. Their wide receivers just aren't good enough. And I don't care what anybody says. Even if Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback behind this offensive line, he would absolutely struggle to get any points with this offensive line. They have to be right next to the Giants as the worst offensive line in the National Football League. And the Chargers offense, is good, but they played against the Jets defense, who played excellent in this game. The coverage was excellent. Their ground game, they were able to stop Austin Eckler from making those big time runs. They were able to do that. They were playing coverage very well. They were stopping Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, the rookie. They were getting pressure on Herbert, and Herbert was, struggling to get some passing games too. I think he was only for 16 for 30 and less than 150 yards, I want to say. And they still won this game convincingly. And the reason why they did is because, the Jets turned the ball over a lot. They fumbled quite a bit in this game. Zach Wilson had a fumble. They also fumbled somewhere in there too. That was near that halfway point, around the 50 or even more closer into Jets territory. If those fumbles didn't happen, this game would be a much lower scoring game. It probably would have been at least maybe a 16-6 or 19-6 kind of game. It wouldn't be anywhere. It wouldn't have been as. It would have been a lot closer if those fumbles didn't happen. But turnovers kill you. No other way to explain that, guys. I mean, turnovers kill you. And if you don't have the offensive line, if you don't have the weaponry that's going to help you out, you're not going to win very many football games. And, and I'm definitely not making excuses for Zach Wilson. I'm not saying that, he doesn't deserve any blame because, there has been times this year where I feel yes, he does deserve some blame in some of these losses. But, if you only are very limited with who you can work with, Garrett Wilson, for example, if he's your primary target, who I think Garrett Wilson is amazing. I think he's a great wide receiver. But if you don't have any other help that's going to separate from, Garrett Wilson, you're not going to be very productive on offense. And, and the offensive line, they can't block. You're not going to be able to run the ball successfully either. And even with Dalvin Cook as the backup running back too for this team, you're just not going to get anywhere if your offensive line is not blocking for you. But that's all I really have to say on this game. It was a disappointment of an appearance from the Jets. I kind of was hoping it would be a very close game. I kind of thought the Jets were going to find a way to kind of keep it close and maybe get a couple of turnovers from the Chargers and maybe get, maybe score a touchdown here or maybe get some in field goal range and try to win the game like they've been the last couple of weeks. But they haven't done that. They didn't do that at all in this game. I don't even think they even forced a turnover in this game, if I'm being completely honest with you. I don't really think they did, which was the big difference maker. If you're not getting turnovers or you're not forcing turnovers, your chances are you're not going to be able to, win a game that way. And that's what the Jets have been doing for weeks now. That's why they won 3 straight games before going into last night. All right, and with all that being said, everybody, that concludes my Week 9 recap of the NFL season for 2023. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Please be sure to drop a like on this video if you have not done so already. Be sure to also hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, help the channel to grow to be bigger and better than what it is already. So, everybody, with that being said, this is your boy, JP Football Fanatic, saying thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.